Hello everyone, this is Miss Chelsea and today we will be learning about forces in motion. First, let's analyze and interpret data to identify patterns in the relationship between speed, distance, velocity, and acceleration. So what is motion? Motion is a change in position over time. To be able to describe an object or individual's motion, you need to be able to accurately describe its position. We describe an object or individual's position by the distance, direction, and a reference point. The reference point can be used to describe an object or individual's position in comparison to another location. For example, if the ball rolled towards the red car, then the red car is the reference point. If the mall is 2 miles north of my house, your house would be the reference point. In this case, the distance is 2 miles and the direction is north. Sometimes we do not list a reference point, but it is implied. For example, I walked 2 steps to the right and 5 steps to the north. In this example, the reference point is whatever position you started in. Next, let's look at speed. So what is speed? Well, speed is a measure of how far something moved, or the distance, divided by the amount of time it took to travel that distance. So the time. It is rare that speed remains constant. For example, when you ride your bike, you may start out slow, then go faster, or stop at some points. In order to calculate your average speed, you would use the formula average speed equals distance divided by time, or S equals D over T, where S is the average speed, D is the distance, and T is the time. The units for speed are often expressed as meters per second, kilometers per second, or miles per hour. Let's look at an example. A runner can currently run a 400-meter race in 50 seconds. What is his average speed? We know that average speed is calculated by S equals D over T. D is the distance, in this case 400 meters, and T is the time, in this case 50 seconds. 400 divided by 50 is 8, and then we keep the units. So we have 8 meters per second. Next, let's consider velocity. So what is velocity? Well, velocity is speed in a specific direction. You must have both a speed and a direction. For example, you're riding in a car going south at 60 miles per hour. South is the direction, 60 miles per hour is the speed, so that sentence gives you velocity. Another car is going the same speed at 60 miles per hour but is traveling north. So the velocity is the speed, 60 miles per hour, with the direction, north. Although you are going the same speed, the velocities are different because you are going in opposite directions. Let's consider our checkpoint question. Compare and contrast speed and velocity by placing the descriptions in the correct box. Well, driving a car at 70 miles per hour has speed but no direction, so it is speed. Riding your bike 6 meters per second traveling west has both a speed of 6 meters per second and a direction, west, so that is an example of velocity. Jogging at 5 meters per second and then slowly speeding up to 6 meters per second, well, those both have speed, but I do not see a direction, so that would be speed. Walking down the street at 3 meters per second and then turning left is a velocity because you know you're going down the street and you know you're traveling at 3 meters per second. You also know that you will be making a left turn, so you know when the direction changes. Let's look at what is acceleration. Well, acceleration is the change in velocity over time. This can mean that an object changes speed, changes the direction, or changes its speed and direction when it accelerates. The most common unit for acceleration is meters per second squared. For example, if you are riding a bike at 2 meters per second and then you increase your speed to 5 meters per second, that is acceleration. If this occurs in a single second, then you would have 5 minus 2 is 3 meters per second squared. Another example is if you are riding your bike at 5 meters per second and then turn left to go west. Even though you have the same speed, your direction has changed, so that is also acceleration. Keep in mind, acceleration is to velocity what speed is to distance. Next, we're going to construct explanation using Newton's law of motion to describe the effects of balanced and unbalanced forces on the motion of an object. We will also construct an argument from evidence to support the claim that the amount of force needed to accelerate an object is proportional to its mass. So, looking at inertia. First, let's talk about what is force. A force is a push or pull on an object. When a force is applied to an object, it can change its motion. There will only be a change in motion of an object if the net force is greater than zero. Now, what is the net force? Well, it is the combination of all forces acting on an object. To calculate this net force, you first need to figure out the direction. So, if both forces are going in the same direction, you can add the forces. If both forces are going in opposite directions, you will need to subtract the forces. That will give you the magnitude or the size of the force. To get the direction, you keep the direction of the larger force. If you have balanced forces or a net force of zero, the motion will not change. An object that's moving will keep moving, and an object that's stopped will stay stopped. However, unbalanced forces can cause a change in motion. They have a net force greater than zero. The acceleration will be in the same direction as the force. Let's look at an example. The red team and the blue team are playing tug of war. The blue team is pulling to the left with 300 newtons of force, and the red team is pulling to the right with 260 newtons of force. What is the net force and in what direction? Well, notice how one's to the left and one's to the right? That means you're going to subtract the two to get a net force of 40 newtons, and the direction is to the left because that's where the bigger force is pointing. Since the net force is greater than zero, this is an example of unbalanced forces. Next, we're going to look at contact versus non-contact forces. So what are contact forces? Well, contact forces are when an object touches or bumps into another object. A major example of a contact force is friction. Friction always opposes motion when two objects are touching. So whatever direction the motion is, friction will be in the opposite. For example, if you were to hit a ball with a mallet on an ice skating rink, it would roll further than it would if you were to hit a ball with the same amount of force in a grass field. This is because the grass provides more friction than the ice. Next, we want to know what are the forces that act at a distance. Forces that act at a distance include gravity as well as magnetism. So gravity pulls you and objects towards Earth. It always points down towards the earth. And The acceleration due to gravity is always 9.8 meters per second squared because this force is constant at ground level. Now, the force of magnets can be felt at a distance before they are even touching. This force can also be felt as they repel. So the force between magnets is also a non-contact force. Sir Isaac Newton developed three laws of motion in 1686 to describe the relationship between force and the motion of an object. Our question is, what is Newton's first law of motion? Well, Newton's first law of motion is also called inertia. It states that an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. It also states that an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted on by an unbalanced force. This unbalanced force causes acceleration to occur in the direction of the net force. Let's look at some examples. An asteroid is moving through space and it keeps going and going, obeying Newton's first law because there is no unbalanced force acting upon it. So it's never going to stop unless it has a force. Another example is this rock. It's not moving until the boy starts to push it forwards. The boy pushing the rock is the unbalanced force. Remember, balanced force does not necessarily mean no force. It just means that all of the forces cancel each other out. So, what is Newton's second law of motion? The second law of motion states that the acceleration of an object depends on the mass of the object and the amount of force applied. There is a mathematical formula that backs up this relationship. Force equals mass times acceleration, or F equals ma. F for force, M for mass, and A for acceleration. Let's look at an example. When you go grocery shopping and you grab a grocery cart, it doesn't take a lot of force to push it through the store. The more groceries or mass you add to the cart, the more force you need to apply to it to get it to move. Now let's look at the other part of this equation, acceleration. An object's acceleration increases as the amount of force applied increases. The opposite effect also happens. The acceleration will decrease if the force decreases. That's why you have to exert more force to move an object quickly than you do to move it slowly. Imagine trying to push a small child on a swing, and then an adult with the same amount of force. What's going to happen and why? Well, a child has less mass than an adult. If you apply the same force to each, the child is going to be able to swing further because it has a higher acceleration than the adult. If you want them to go the same height, you would need to apply more force when pushing the adult, the one with more mass. Next, we want to know what is Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion states that whenever one object exerts a force on the second object, the second object exerts an equal yet opposite force on the first. That means that all forces act in pairs, and no force can act by itself. Action-reaction pairs are present even when there is no motion. Let's look at an example. When you sit in a chair, you are putting force on the chair, down on the chair, and then the chair is pushing force back to you, up. Your force is the action, and the chair's force is the reaction. It's important to remember that force pairs do not act on the same object. So when you swim, your hands exert a force on the water, and the water exerts a force on your hand.